What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Eye on the U, the Miami Herald show about all things Miami Hurricanes. Your hosts are back. Andre Fernandez here, along with Jordan McPherson, talking a little Canes, coming off a bounce-back victory, a much-needed bounce-back victory for these Hurricanes. It wasn't that easy at first, but they got it done, beat Stanford, got back on the winning track, 6-1 now on the season, starting to trend a little bit upward again, but here comes a tough test on the road this week. Head to Dallas. First time they leave the state this year to play a team, and they're playing the SMU Mustangs, and a lot of familiar faces. We're going to talk a little bit about the familiarity with this opponent, with a team that got very close to them facing them in the ACC title game last year before things fell apart. Now they finally have the matchup on the road, though. High noon in Texas, Jordan. Let's dive right into it. Let's talk a little bit about this Stanford victory. It was a little ugly at first. Miami falls behind. People wondering, myself included, is this really going to happen again? Even worse this time, because 2 in a row would have been, a loss last week would have been the death sentence to any chance they had of making the college football playoff. If you look at who they would have who the 2 losses would have been to, when you look at everybody else's resumes. But Miami finds a way. The ground game revived in the second half, especially behind Mark Fletcher, and they're able to get it done. So this team, they looked better in the second half, but it makes you wonder, was it enough, or they still have some things to fix? What did you take from the comeback and the pulling away of the second half and getting that victory?
Yeah, no, I felt like, again, it was, like you said, it was a much-needed win, and really, outside of first drive on offense and really the first drive on defense and the first couple on offense, it was all Miami. I mean, Stanford, their first drive, they marched down 74 yards for the touchdown to go up 7-0. Miami held them to 70 yards of offense the rest of the way.
Right.
The offense, they scuffled in the first half, the first few drives, and then they really got ignited that last drive of the first half where they marched on, I think it was 13, 14, 15 plays, something like that. 5-yard fade route from Carson Beck to CJ Daniels. CJ Daniels catching it over the Stanford corner that was covering him in the end zone. That drive really sparked them going into the second half. They scored on, I think it was 6 of their final 7 drives, and the only drive they didn't score on, they got down to the Stanford 21, 4th and 1 play that, after review, looked like they got the first down on 3rd down, but was upheld as not getting there. But they marched down the field on that drive as well. So they played a lot of complimentary football. Defense forced 2 turnovers. Malachi Tony had a couple of really great punt returns. So the Canes had really solid field position basically the entire second half, which they capitalized on. They got 5 rushing touchdowns in the second half. Mark Fletcher with 3 of them. Jordan Lyle, who hasn't played much because, again, been banged up since that Notre Dame game, he finally gets into the end zone. Had to have been a stress off his shoulders just to finally have a big play after just trying to get on the field. Like I said, the defense, 7 points, and it was all on that first drive, 2 turnovers, a lot of pressures, even though they didn't have Akeem Mesidor. They had a lot of younger guys rotating in, and they had playmakers come out from all over. Keontae Scott was great in the nickel again. Xavier Lucas, his first interception. The tackling was a lot cleaner, which was the big thing they had to improve on from that Louisville loss. So all the pieces were there. Granted, yes, it was a Stanford team. They were favored by 31 going into that game. They ended up winning by 35 outscoring them by 35 in the second half. But that's a game that you have to build on as you move forward.
Yeah, it was funny that they still covered, because if any gambler was probably watching that game, seeing it the way it was going for about 3 quarters and thinking, great, it should have gone against the spread, and then all of a sudden they cover anyway. But it was good to see the offense, especially the running game, revived. We've talked about it. This team has to be able to run the football. You can't just put it all on Carson Beck in the passing game, which can respond in spots, but you can't just drop it all on them. They have to have that balance on offense. So it was good to see them kind of have that again, and hopefully it's a recovery game that can carry over, because on the road especially, they're going to need it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, this is where Mark Fletcher has been proving his worth. I mean, he has 9 rushing touchdowns this year, which is among the top 10. If I remember correctly, he's among the top 10 nationally. He's been a lot of big moments this year. He has stepped up. Yeah, he is tied for 13th nationally with 9 rushing touchdowns. He's upped into the top 10 in history for career rushing touchdowns. It's up to 22. He passed Clinton Portis last week, which again, he's getting into some pretty heavy territory here. And it's good to see. 'Cause, I mean, we've seen everything that Mark Fletcher has gone through. And the thing is, Saturday was 1 day after the 1 year anniversary of his father, Big Mark's passing, which we remember how emotional that FSU game was last year when he played a couple days after his dad passed. And I wrote that story over the weekend. He talked a couple times about it throughout the season, just how he's playing for his dad. His dad is his why nowadays, and that's why he's trying to succeed. He's trying to play in his father's honor, and he's been living up to the bill. Obviously, Miami's had a couple mediocre running games against FSU and Louisville, but when Mark Fletcher's on, when he's able to pound the rock, when he's able to make guys miss when he miss on first contact, he's a threat because he's a hard guy to get down. And if you can add Jordan Lyles' change of pace into there, and he can get a little bit more involved in the game planning, which it looks like Miami's trying to do, gives you that dynamic threat that they've been really missing in the run game, because they can hit hard up the middle. They can grind out those 3, 4, 5 yards, but they haven't really had that really breakaway threat in the run game this year.
It's a little more of the methodical running game instead of the home run hitter, and Lyle brings that element. Yeah. It definitely does. He's shown it even last year. Remember against USF and others.
Yeah, I mean, Miami this year, they only have 5 runs longer than 20 yards, only 2 longer than 30. You need to have, obviously, getting those 3, 4 yards of play and staying consistent and moving the chains forward is big, but you need that home run hit every once in a while from the ground game. We see in the past game a few times when Carson Beck's able to find Malachi Tony or CJ Daniels, but to be able to have that big threat in the backfield that can get you on occasion, get you a 25-yard gain, get you a momentum shifting play, that's still one of the pieces of this offense that really hasn't come out this year. And that's something where they've got 5 weeks to try to figure that part out still.
Yeah, they have some time but it's a good sign for them to do this. I know people will say it's Stanford, but it was a needed recovery game, and now let's see if they can do it on the road. SMU is not that lights out on defense. It has been vulnerable at times, a different challenge there, obviously, but this passing game too. I mean, we can't stop talking about Malachi Tony for good reason. I mean, he continues to impress. Jordan, you wrote about him this week. I mean, he's top 4 in a lot of receiving categories right now in terms of in comparing to other receivers in the nation. But I know your story focused in a lot about the elite company. Speaking of elite company, you mentioned Clinton Portis when it came to Mark Fletcher, but Malachi is already knocking on the door, even on one of his biggest fans, Michael Irvin.
Yeah, no, it's been so much fun to watch Malachi Tony. And again, I still have to bring it up every time. He reclassified to join a year early. He turned 18 right before the Florida game.
Yep.
And he already, through 7 games, he has 43 catches and 562 receiving yards. The freshman record for catches in a freshman season is 49. He is 6 catches away from tying it and 7 away from breaking it, with at minimum 6 games left in the season. The freshman record for receiving yards is 934. He's less than 400 away from breaking that. Both of those by Amon Richards in 2016. But if we want to extrapolate it a little bit further, I mean, we definitely can, because if he keeps up this pace, he's up for, even if we assume that it's going to be 13 games, or this puts him on pace for 74 catches, 963 yards. Single season reception record 79. Charleston Rambo in 2021.
Yeah,
and
the year he had, I remember.
And the thing is, only 8 receivers ever have had more than 60 catches in a season, 60 catches or more in a season.
Yeah,
Malachi Tony's 17 catches away from that.
Yeah,
he has a chance to become the 7th player in history to have 1,000 receiving yards, and the first to do it as a freshman.
Yeah,
and
you're probably gonna be able to peel off the word freshman off a lot of these accomplishments. Yes. He's chasing receiving single season marks, period, of any receiver in history. If he had, knock on wood, if he has a full year and keeps going at this pace, I mean, he hit the ground running in that Notre Dame game like he was a 3-year veteran, like he had been on the team, like he was a junior or a senior already. I mean, he looked so comfortable even on that opening drive that. I mean, we've seen him in high school, but at the same time, it's still impressive because the transition sometimes even takes a little bit for a lot of people, but he was like instantly
Yep.
a part of that offense, and just the offense was humming with him in it, and impressive.
Yeah, no, and now they're even adding new wrinkles. Obviously, he's doing jet sweeps and reverses in the run game. The punt, he finally got a couple of punt returns he was able to take, and he took full advantage of them. Got two of them. He was a fraction of a foot away from breaking at least one of those two away for touchdowns last week. Right. And he even said, he went, "Yeah, I probably should have gotten one of them. It's gonna come." And when Malachi Tony puts his mind to something, we know damn well he's gonna accomplish it. So it's a matter of time before he breaks one of those.
I would not be surprised if it does. I mean, for the Hurricanes' sake, it'd be nice if it was like in a clutch moment, not maybe necessarily in a. I mean, it'd be nice no matter what for them, but it would be even better if it's not maybe necessarily like in a blowout when they're already up by 30 or something, but in a key moment in a game would be impressive if that were to happen. You never know. Maybe on the road this week or in the next few weeks, Miami's got, three key road games, including this one, to be able to get where they want to get to if they can leap those hurdles. So we'll see. We'll see if Tony, but it's still impressive.
Andre, just curious, do you remember the last time Miami returned a punt for a touchdown?
I mean, okay, all right. And here's our old man moment of the week.
No, it's not even an old man moment, but it's been a little bit. It's 2018. They haven't had a punt return touchdown in 7 years.
I know it's been a little bit. I know it hasn't been. I mean, I have memories of Devin Hester and people like that doing it, but I knew it didn't go that far back. I knew someone had, but I couldn't remember the exact.
Yeah, Jeff Thomas and DJ Dallas. He's had a punt return in 2018.
I think I do remember DJ Dallas. I think I do remember DJ Dallas. Not remember DJ Dallas, but I mean the moment of DJ Dallas returning that punt. I think I do remember it now that you mention it, but I didn't know that was the last one.
He had it against Pittsburgh at the end of the season. I'm looking up the Jeff Thomas one now, so I'm pretty sure. He was the last one to do it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good trivia question.
The week before DJ Dallas did it against Virginia Tech. They had back-to-back weeks at the end of November in 2018.
Wow. So it's been a little bit, yeah. I mean, not it doesn't go as far back as Devin Hester, but it is 7 years. Is still, it shows you it's been a little bit since they've had that extra element, and that's again, championship teams do it in all three. So that'd be huge if you have him not just housing it, a house call every time, but getting you that field position, that sort of thing. Even that is extremely valuable to this team, and it's just it's impressive to see Malachi just adding that element and adding everything that he's done so far. But let's see. Miami, basically, like we said before, 6-1, 2-1. It's still kind of early in the season to really, really dissect the standings and look at this, look at that, especially because Miami's only played 3 conference games, and you have teams like Georgia Tech that have already played 5 or even 6, I think. But right now, a cluster of teams, if you look at it, that either have no losses or 1 loss. Realistically, the conference is sort of taking shape in the sense of who the group of teams left that still have a shot at making the conference title game are at this point. It's obviously Georgia Tech, Virginia at the top, both unbeaten in conference play still right now. 5-0 actually. I said 6, but no, not yet. 5-0 for Georgia Tech in the conference, 8-0 overall, and then Pitt, Louisville, SMU, Duke, and Miami. That's it. After that, if you have 2 losses at this point, realistically, you probably don't have a shot at it anymore. So that's what makes this game this weekend so key for both Miami and SMU. The loser, it's pretty much a play out, play in, whatever you want to call it, game. The loser's pretty much done as far as the conference race is concerned. And really, if Miami loses this game, again, I just don't think I know you don't necessarily have to make the ACC title game anymore. But 2 losses at this point to anyone left on the schedule.
If Miami doesn't make the ACC championship game, it has to be as a 1-loss team. There's no way around it, especially when you look at sort of where everything is with the AP poll right now. I mean, Miami beat Stanford, and yet they dropped from 9 to 10.
Right.
I mean, that's also because the ranked matchups that shook out the way they did. Vanderbilt getting another top 15 win, Ole Miss getting another big win. Yeah. So Miami's at the point where if they don't make the conference championship game, they still have to win out.
Right.
They basically now at this point.
And it's a 3-loss SMU team on top of that just came off a bad loss to Wake Forest. So that's
correct. And then you also just have to prepare for the inevitable unknowns. And I was actually talking about this with someone the other day and looking at the possibilities. Look at this hypothetical of, let's say it's Georgia Tech, Virginia in the ACC championship game. and Virginia wins it, how much that impacts Miami? Because again, we talked about in March Madness with bid stealers, the ACC champion automatically gets in. So that hampers Miami because would they knock Georgia Tech out for playing in the ACC championship game and losing, and give Miami, who didn't get in but only has one loss, but didn't get into the conference championship in? You still obviously it's a ways away, but there's still those type of hypotheticals that you have to think about not even for the ACC, but also with the other conferences at large, with how things could shake out with teams teetering around the standings. They win their conference championship game, and the favorite seemed like a shoo-in. There are only 7 bids for non-conference champions to get in. So you have to start thinking about this sort of madness style too, with those bid stealers and bubble teams and all that as well.
The Big Ten right now, it would, if you told me from the future that Ohio State and Indiana are not going to be the Big Ten, 1 and 2 at the end of it, I'd be shocked. But the SEC is all over the place.
Yeah, and the Big 12 is all over the place as well.
And the Big 12 is all over the place too. So that's the thing. That mess, you don't want to get caught in all that mess. And you're right. What if Georgia Tech's 12-0, loses that game? You got to take those 2, and then you're pretty much screwed at that point. Yeah. You're the odd team, kind of shoehorned out potentially, or on a very tenuous bubble at that point, to use another March Madness type term. But so it's
the one thing I will say with Tech's schedule, we have to remember they close the season against Georgia, so that will be a very interesting. And honestly, with the way Georgia Tech's schedule was played out this year, that's going to be the real barometer of what this Georgia Tech team is. Because yes, they beat Clemson at the beginning of the year, and that was the signature win at the time. But we have seen what Clemson has become this year. This isn't the Clemson of old. So Georgia Tech's big wins right now are their 3-point win against a Clemson team that doesn't really look like the Clemson that we knew, and their 27-18 win over Duke a couple weeks ago. The rest of their conference schedule is NC State, Boston College, and Pitt. Pitt could be a tricky game. It could be an interesting game, but none of these really scream resume builder outside of Georgia at the end and potentially, presumably, what they do in the ACC championship game if they get there.
It's crazy. Georgia Tech could be 11-0 and very quickly drop to 11-2 after that game, and if they were to lose the conference title game right after that, let's say.
Correct. Yeah. So again, there's a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of interesting parts to dissect, but I will say Georgia Tech, at least from the eye test, looks legit. I mean, Haynes King is, I think I mention him every week. He's one of my favorite guys to watch. He is the guy who finds a way to lead that team. I mean, I don't know how much Heisman talk he's getting, but I feel like regardless, I don't think he's getting enough because of everything he does for that team. And then just around the rest of the ACC, I mean, we talk about, again, Virginia undefeated in the conference play, but
barely.
Barely on that one. I mean, that UNC game was just, ugh. Don't really know what else to describe it. But again, and then you have Pitt, who's 4-1 in the league, but 6-2 overall. SMU 3-1, but 5-3 overall. We're going to talk about SMU in a bit. And then the Fighting Manny Diaz's are still fighting at 3-1 in conference play for Duke. So again,
3-loss team, but yeah.
I don't know. It's so interesting where you think about, again, the bid stealing potential if the ACC goes full ACC, which we've seen it do over the years.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you used to love that coastal chaos term. I remember that all the time back when we had that. It just feels like, I don't know. Again, now I'm just going to throw opinions out there. Join me if you want. If Miami takes care of business, it kicks SMU out of the picture.
Yes.
I don't see Duke hanging around too much longer. I feel like at some point somebody's going to give them that second loss.
Yeah.
Louisville hanging around and has that Miami victory now. They still have a couple games that they got a couple tests down the stretch they got to get through, but they're still hanging in there a little bit. Pitt, I like the quarterback. I like that kid. Like I saw that game against FSU. He looked impressive.
He finishes the season against Georgia Tech and Miami.
Exactly. So can they hang more than not a knock on them? It's more like, can they survive all of that?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. Georgia Tech is the most legit one. It looks like at this point. After that, I feel like it's them. I don't know. I feel like Virginia, sort of like Duke, somebody's going to get them at some point.
Virginia's going to fall apart at some point.
I just don't see it. Yeah. Like I'd trust Pitt a little bit more, believe it or not, just because of that quarterback factor. And I definitely would trust Louisville a little more.
Yeah. Because, I mean, just remember with Virginia also, overtime to beat Florida State, overtime to beat Louisville, almost lost to Washington State, and needed overtime to beat UNC.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have Duke in 3 weeks. That's going to be fire. They have Duke in 3 weeks, and they have Cal this week. One of those two,
and out there too.
And it's at Cal. So
I could easily see that West Coast road trap.
Yes,
springing this week on them. So that's what I mean. Like I honestly, I think it's the winner of this game, especially if it's Miami, and then after that maybe Louisville and Georgia Tech. I feel like those are the three. Pitt. Maybe an outside shot, but it's a tough road they have ahead of them. But it's almost like 3, maybe 4 that feel like the best chance to get into that title game right now, the way it's shaping up. So we'll see. A few more weeks is going to get interesting, but Miami has to go week by week, especially this week. This is a tough road test. You know, SMU, not as good as they've been last year. Let's preview this game a little bit, Jordan. The offense, a little down from last year. We know they were a top 10 offense in the country. The Mustangs were last season on the way to that ACC title game and to the college football playoff where they ended up losing to Penn State. This year, I looked at the numbers. They've dropped from 7th in scoring offense down to 50th, a little bit down this year. And then they come up with a complete dud last week against Wake Forest. Wake Forest playing a little better than a lot of people probably thought they were, but still, even Rhett Lashley this week in his presser said, worst offensive performance since he's been there. And speaking of Rhett Lashley, very familiar to UM fans, former OC at Miami. A lot of familiar faces on this team. Jordan, you wrote about it this week, the familiarity that Miami has. Romello Brinson on this team, still doing a lot for them, making a big impact on offense. TVD and others in more of a backup role, but a team that Miami knows well. Almost played last year. Hasn't played since 1965. No, I was not around for that. And let's see. What do you think of this Mustangs matchup on the road for Miami?
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. It was the one I had circled on the calendar just at the start of the season, just because it was the matchup that was supposed to be in December last year. And just like you said, with just all the different UM connections that are there. I mean, Rhett Lashley, I think it's a handful of his assistants have UM ties. And then you look at just how they got to where they are was a lot of UM players who weren't getting time here transferred there to be with Rhett Lashley and sort of helped him build this thing. They have 4 guys on their roster right now in Romello Brinson, who's their leading receiver, Chris Johnson, who was basically the number 4 running back last year at UM. He's their number 2 guy up at SMU. And then they have 2 other guys who are in the backup roles, Tyler Van Dyke, who started at Miami for a couple years, and then Zion Nelson, who we all thought was medically retired after last year, and yet he's at SMU now. He's in a reserve role. He got into a couple of their blowout games for a few snaps. But they have 4 guys there. They have a lot of guys over the past few years who really helped them where they were. Rashard Smith last year was their ace in the hole in the run game, 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns to help them in that first year in the USC.
Playing for the Chiefs now.
Yeah. Again, they have Elijah Roberts was there for a couple good years. Jafari Harvey, and then they have a list goes on. I wrote the whole thing on this on Monday, just breaking down how UM and how former UM people helped build SMU in the way it is, and they were one of the question marks going in last year. Remember, last year was the first year for them, Stanford and Cal in the ACC, and we saw how great they were in the American the year before. They run the schedule and conference play there. They win the conference championship. And we're thinking, and at least for me, I'm thinking, okay, they'll be middle of the pack, probably upper middle of the pack, and then run the slate last year. And then it's just like, okay, Rhett Lashley knows what he's doing. He's got everything going. His stuff, the way that he coached, the way he's doing everything translates very well into the ACC. They got into the playoffs, even though they lost to Clemson in the conference championship game. And then this year, they started off slow. They lost to both Baylor and TCU in the regular season, and then picked things right back up where they left off in conference play. Won the first 3 before the absolute dud that was the Wake Forest game, which that was just a sloppy game all around. The end of the first half was, I'm still trying to process how it was punts, misplay, a bunch of misplays over the final couple minutes, and then chance to close it out. They have the ball with like 2 minutes left, have to punt it away or give the ball away. Wake Forest makes one great play down the field and kick a walk-off field goal. They had so many different chances to close that game out and just really didn't. And that's going to be interesting when we see what happens with Miami going over there. Like you said, their offense is a little down last year, but being in the top 50 and the 50 nationally is still nothing to snuff at. But the main thing for me is going to be their defense. They have a top 15 run defense. Their pass defense, they're giving up the third most passing yards per game in college football. But they also have 12 interceptions and 20 total turnovers. So it's sort of they give up a lot of big plays, but they also make a lot of big plays. So how does Miami deal with that?
Well,
is Miami going to be able to play clean football, minimize the mistakes, and take advantage of the weaknesses? Or are they going to fall into some traps there and sort of deal with that dichotomy that is that passing defense?
I think, again, it comes down to the running game. I know we're not talking about SMU's run defense being a weakness, but it's more Miami setting it up and taking that pressure off of the passing game, and the passing game being able to exploit SMU a lot more comfortably if they're able to run the football. And then the turnovers, you obviously limit that. We just saw a game a couple weeks ago where Carson Beck threw 4 picks. You don't want to have him running around trying to escape pressure and making mistakes again. Miami up front has to have a good game running the football, establishing that, and taking some of that pressure off, and to be able to exploit the weaknesses of this team. And then, yes, SMU has an explosive offense, but I think Miami's defense has answered the bell even in defeat this year. They were able to, that game, they were able to make a lot of stops. It wasn't totally on the defensive side. I think this is where you see, can Miami handle a high-powered offense that they could not handle at all last season, but they have so far this year. Now they're going to get pushed again on the road. The road element intrigues me too, obviously, because they haven't really, yes, they faced FSU, hostile environment and all that, but now I feel like it's even more a little bit being away, being in Dallas, that whole thing. And now we're getting to that point in the season where we're getting a little closer to that time where Miami has to respond as we get later and later into the year too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And again, it's the road element. It's a noon game, which means it's an 11 a.m. kick out in Dallas. Right. It's the first nooner they're going to have this year. So a lot of different elements that they haven't had this year, all really coming together at once. And yeah, like you said, and it's the first of 3 over these final 5 when they're on the road. They finished the season back-to-back at Virginia Tech and at Pittsburgh. So again, this is going to be the first time we get to see how they handle going out of state. First time they handle basically waking up and going straight to the stadium and getting right into action. So, yeah, should be a very interesting one. UM's favor by, I believe, the last line I saw was 6 or 6.5. So, yeah, should be a close game, should be a good game. And, yeah, this is going to have some major implications for what happens the rest of the season. And then also, just quick note, after this game, next Tuesday, first college football playoff rankings come out. So we're going to get first a real look at how the committee is looking at everything. So it'd probably be a good idea to try to make a good impression right before that first ranking comes out.
Yeah. Just yeah. Might not be bad. Might not be bad. Not bad. Not too bad. But just yeah, I mean, it won't be, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it won't be 62-55 or whatever wild score I threw out last year, the way neither team had any semblance of a defense last year. I think this year you'll see a little bit more down to earth. But if Miami can, like I said, I think if they run the ball, maybe get in the 30s, and then that's probably enough to beat this team this year, the way that they've been playing. I mean, it'll be good to see the balance continue for this team.
Yes, it would definitely be good. And that's, again, that balance has been critical for them when just all season was the run sets up the pass, the defense sets up the offense. The complementary football has been paramount for this team. Whereas, obviously, again, we touched on so much last year was basically, okay, Cam Ward, do whatever you have to do to win us the game. Okay, Xavier Restrepo make a big catch. Okay, Andy Borregales kick a key field goal. This time it's sort of prepped for if they can bounce off each other, they can feed off each other. That's when this team succeeds. We saw them take a step back from that against Louisville. We saw them bounce back to that against Stanford. Can they continue that momentum they built in that Stanford game, specifically that second half, going into what they're going to see in Dallas on Saturday?
For sure. Let's see what happens. Gerald Ford Stadium, noon. It's ESPN, I believe, on the main ESPN, if I remember correctly. So I was there, Jordan. If you want to have your little old moment, I was there in 2007 not with the Canes, with Miami Northwestern when they played that 1-2 nationally ranked matchup against South Lake Carroll, and the Bulls with then eventual Miami starting quarterback Ja'Cory Harris beat South Lake Carroll and went on to win a national title. That famous Bulls team from 07. That's the one time I've been at Gerald Ford Stadium and covered a game there. But I expect a much larger crowd on Saturday for this game.
Yeah, it's homecoming for SMU. They already announced a sellout, so
yeah,
should be a good environment there.
Should be a good environment for sure. Speaking of interesting environments, we'll end the show on this note. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about them in the weeks to come. But it's basketball season almost, Jordan. I wanted to just mention real quick the Hurricanes basketball teams are ready to get back in action. First year for Jai Lucas as head coach of the Hurricanes. Michelle Kaufman, if you have a chance, go to MiamiHerald.com and check out her previews of both the men's and women's teams as they get ready for this new season that starts next week. And the Hurricanes, the men's team kicking off on November 3rd at 8 o'clock, I believe, is the tip-off time, facing Jacksonville. We know, obviously, it's the first few non-conference games at first, and then before it gets really into the thick of the conference play and bigger games down the road. But this team this year, Jordan, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much better they can be after that disastrous year last year. Jay Lucas has done a good job bringing in a lot of talent. They brought in, obviously, a few new coaches. Andrew Moran from Columbus, who had so much success there, is one of them, who coached the Boozer twins. I don't know how much of a turnaround it'll be, but I got to think the Canes will be a little bit better this season.
Yeah, I definitely do too. And I mean, that's the thing with college basketball. That's a sport where you could be the absolute worst one year, completely flip your roster, and all of a sudden you're back to contending and being a legitimate team. It's just, there's so much uncertainty. There's so much turnover, especially now in the transfer portal and NIL era, that you can make a turnaround in 1 year. And there's a lot of like this team. A few of the guys that Jai Lucas has singled out over the last week or so. Trey Donaldson, the guard who they got, the transfer from Michigan, has been very good. Shelton Henderson, one of their true freshmen, 6'6", 240-pound big, has been one of the standouts. And the guy who I'm looking forward to seeing most, I want Dante Allen, the guy who we got to see during the prep days.
Yep.
Who, again, I was taken aback from when watching him back in his high school days, and I think he can make an instant impact for this Canes team.
Yeah, it's good to see him back in South Florida. I know I was sad to see him go for that last year when he was at Riviera and not see him play. Riviera, to their credit, still won a state title without him, but it was good to see him back in Miami now at the college level. And on that note, remember, Jordan, it wasn't that long ago the women's team was making it all the way to the Elite Eight with Katie Meyer at the helm. The same way the men made it to the Final Four. The success was there not that long ago, and Tricia Cullip entering her second season as the Miami women's team's coach. Looking at their season, they also start on Monday night at 5 o'clock against Hofstra, team that looks to rebound a little bit as well from a tough season last year. Has a talented roster. Gal Raviv, a sophomore out of Israel, has generated a lot of talk, a lot of buzz going into the season as one of the potential impactful playmakers on this team.
Yeah, no, and you've got a couple others. Rashaya Kyle, transfer from UF. Center, she's very solid. She was their top player in their exhibition game against Lynn not too long ago. Another name I'm looking forward to seeing, Maya Kone. She played at Blanche Ely. She was at FIU, transferred over. They have a couple other local names that may be able to make an impact. But yeah, it'll be good to see what Trish Cullip's able to do in year 2 here.
Yeah, rich tradition on that women's team for a lot of years, even before Katie Meyer, going back to Fern Labate. So it'll be good to see if the Canes women can knock on that NCAA tournament door once again. So talking hoops, Jordan, we'll be doing some more of that in the weeks to come. But obviously football and this SMU game. We'll be back next week to discuss what happened in Dallas and look ahead beyond that. Miami's got 2 home games coming up after that against Syracuse on the 8th, NC State on the 15th, the final 2 home games of the regular season before those 2 big road challenges that that Jordan mentioned earlier that they have at Blacksburg against VTech and Pitt at the end of the regular season. But until then, check out all of Jordan's work at MiamiHerald.com. Check us out there and on YouTube. We appreciate you, as always, for watching Eye on the U, and we'll see you next week.